You will see what those are soon.
And without further ado,
Let's jump right into it. So, Ian, do you remember what I said we're going to be talking about first?
something about India.
India, that's right. So, India. India is one of the 3 countries in the world that has a Hindu majority population,
Wow.
along with Sri Lanka and Mauritius. And it is considered the home of the Indian people, hence the name India. And their Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has spiked a lot of controversy in the past few months, and we really just wanted to dive into this. So, Narendra Modi has passed something recently called the Citizenship Amendment Bill.
What is that?
The Citizenship Amendment Bill, it's a good question, Ian, is something that essentially makes the path to citizenship in India much, much easier as
Okay.
long as you aren't a Muslim.
Oh, that seems a tad bit discriminatory.
A little bit discriminatory. And that is where the West has reached out and called India, they're saying it's no longer secular and it's turning into a theocratic state. And to an extent, like, this is true. India is trying to preserve their Hindu majority population.
Okay.
And as a member of the Indian parliament said, Asaduddin Owaisi, he said, and I quote, "We are heading towards totalitarianism, a fascist state."
Okay. Interesting. That's a very good quote by Mr. Ozawazi.
Yes, it is hard to pronounce, I admit. I don't even know if I pronounced it right, but
Yell at us. But maybe the person yelling at us will be our first comment.
maybe. So yeah, if you're gonna yell at us, do it in the comments. Anyways, Mr. Owazi is a Muslim in the parliament, and he finds this bill incredibly racist and discriminatory against India's 200 million Muslim citizens. And out of a country of 1.39 billion people, that is
Wow.
a huge chunk of the population.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go into why. So, Ian, why do you think this bill was passed?
Probably some deep-rooted conflict between the two groups, and they were like, nah, I don't want you to be a citizen if you're Muslim.
Interesting. Well, I guess to an extent. So, the argument that is mostly made in defense of this bill is that India wants to preserve its identity as a Hindu state. So there's there's a big line dividing people who think this is just discriminatory against Muslims, and it's India just saying we don't dislike Muslims, we just want to maintain our Hindu
Right.
identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And so most refugees nowadays are majority Muslim. The majority of them are Muslim.
Where are they coming from?
They're coming from all over the Middle East.
Okay.
We have a lot from Afghanistan due to the Taliban. Obviously, Syria is a big issue. There's a lot of them fleeing from Pakistan.
Right.
And so it's a huge issue, and it's really spiked up recently because of all the wars going on in the Middle East.
Right.
And so we see something similar to this in Israel, for example. Israel has this program called Aliyah, where you can come to Israel if you are a Jew and you can gain citizenship. There are about 20% of Israel is Arab, but that doesn't. So when Israel allows in Jews, it's not because they're discriminating against Arabs. It's because they are trying to preserve their Jewish identity. So it's not necessarily against Arabs. It's just to preserve the Jewish identity of the one Jewish state. And that's similar to India, right? Because there aren't that many Hindu majority states.
Right.
So India is not necessarily discriminating against the Muslims. They're just trying to keep themselves as a Hindu country.
Okay. So on the surface, it seems discriminatory, but there's actually many layers for reasons why this bill was passed. So what are some more arguments against this bill?
Against this bill? So that's a good question, right? So like I said before, most refugees are Muslim. And it's almost so a lot of people say is India is not doing its fair share in taking in all these refugees and immigrants, because when most of them are Muslim and you pass a bill saying that if you're Muslim you can't get citizenship without a lot of work, and honestly it's almost impossible. When a country does something like that, then they're really not doing their fair share of the work,
Right.
because most of them are Muslim. And so that's where most of this controversy comes in, because India is essentially saying you can't come in because you're Muslim. That's what it looks like on the surface, and to an extent that really is what is going on here. And like I said earlier, there are reasons for that. They're trying to preserve their identity, but at the same time, they are blatantly saying, if you are a Muslim, it's going to be almost impossible for you to gain citizenship.
Right.
And of course, a lot of people are saying it's discriminatory against Muslims. As we've seen recently, many riots have broken out across India.
Really?
Yes, of Muslims acting in very violent ways, and the Indian police cracking down on them in very violent ways. So it's really going back and forth here.
Right.
No one is innocent, and people are hitting each other and attacking each other, and it's really become a really not so fun place to be.
I don't want to be there.
Yeah, it's become very violent, and we've seen this all over the news. Although it has been shadowed by coronavirus lately, it is still going on.
Coronavirus always
really does
infecting
shadow
everything, including the news.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it is important to note that there are 200 million Muslims in India.
Wow.
So it is very, very hard for the government of India to restrict religious freedom, because that's just too many people to regulate. So to make the argument that India is just not letting you worship freely because you're a Muslim, it's even if that is true for some reason, it's still extremely hard to enforce because there's literally 200 million Muslims.
Right.
So it would be very, very difficult to actually crack down on someone because of their religion.
Right. But it has been done, sadly.
It has been done, and we're seeing a lot of that all over the world, and I'm sure to an extent it is going on in India. A lot of Indian Muslims have said they don't feel safe being a Muslim in India because of bills like these, which of course was passed in the parliament, which means a lot of people that are getting represented by these people in parliament believe in this bill, because otherwise it wouldn't have passed. So obviously there is a big anti-Muslim sentiment, and of course a lot of people who are voting for this bill might just be anti-Muslim, right? There's nothing to do with preserving their Hindu nationality. They might just not like Muslims. So we've talked about the Muslim ban. No, not Muslim ban, but
no,
to an extent.
Confusing. Two different things.
Two different things with anyways. We're actually going to talk about what's going on in India right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Besides coronavirus.
So a little bit. We might talk about that a little bit.
Be clear, we're not talking about the beer.
Not the beer, Ian.
Not the beer. I was very disappointed to figure this one out.
Yeah, Ian learned that about 2 days ago.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to modern news in India.
Modern news in India. So, obviously, India is still dealing with this problem of this religious tension, but there's a lot of things going on, and most of it has to do with, of course, the coronavirus.
Yes, of course.
Of course. That's all the headlines right now. So, some things. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the Middle East has banned travel from India, which means no one from India can go to Saudi Arabia, which is weird because there have only been 2 coronavirus deaths inside of India. Wow. Which is very interesting when you think about it because there's 1.39 billion people in India and they only have 2 deaths.
Right.
Where countries like Italy have had hundreds and they have way less than 1.39 billion. They have recently Israel has enforced an export ban on India, and they just made some modifications so that India can import drugs, which is a little interesting because it's not a full export ban anymore. And
that's very interesting.
India has banned all foreign tourists, so no one's coming in. It's honestly they're shutting down, and this is something we see all over the world because we're really just trying to stem this issue. Because especially in a country like India where it's so densely populated,
right?
You don't want it to break out.
It's very densely populated.
Indeed. So, do you have any more other questions, Ian? Or would you like to move on?
No, I'd like to move on. I think I got the gist of India.
Yep, and if you have any criticisms or if you want to add something, please feel free to do it in the comment section or on our Instagram page. Please feel free to DM us on Politics1001.
Very accessible.
Yes, we try to respond to all our DMs in a quick and efficient time. So please feel free to reach out. We love it when you guys do.
Right.